Go ahead and sit upright with good posture. Inhale and exhale through your nose. Take a few slow, deep breaths. On the inhale, expand your body. And on the exhale, relax and allow it to contract. Inhale, expand. Exhale, relax. On the inhale, allow the breath to move your body into your meditation posture. And on the exhale, stabilize that posture, redistributing any remaining tension sort of evenly across the whole body, front and back. Scan the body slowly from the top of the head down through the head, through the neck, and continue downward, looking for any excess or unbalanced tension. Where found, inhale into the tension, and on the exhale, redistribute it evenly throughout the rest of the body. Notice any place that sticks out in your awareness. Breathe into that spot and redistribute that feeling uniformly across the body. With eyes open, focus on a point or an object in front of you. Keep your attention focused on the point or object. As usual, if you notice your attention is strayed, just gently bring your attention back to the point, back to the object. If your attention is strayed, bring your attention back to your point or object. Maintain focus there. And however steady you are able to maintain this focus, look and observe how the attention fluctuates. Even with steady focus, the attention is readjusting, drifting, flitting out, and reestablishing. Just observe this subtle activity that is taking place even in focused awareness. Again, if your attention has strayed, bring it back to that point or object. And now try very hard to fix the point or object in place, as if pinning it to the center of your awareness. If you are able to pin it long enough to observe without releasing it, you may notice movement, distortions, or even hallucinations in the peripheral space. Good. Now relax the focus of awareness. Allow your breath to continue on its own. Allow the mind and the attention to do what it will. There's no need to direct the mind or the attention in any way now. There's no need to do anything in particular or not to do anything in particular. Just rest in this open awareness. As we conclude the meditation, don't rush. Just make note of your current state and allow consciousness to ease smoothly back into engaging with the world.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe's. Nikolai, were you once on a hill in Cottage Grove with a group of spiritual people?
Yes, I was. I recognize you, and I think that you just reminded me of where I know you from.
That's that's where we met. Yes. Well, welcome to this group.
Thank you. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, yeah.
You-
I, I, in that second part of that meditation, I remembered where I met you when I let go of the focus.
Hmm.
Um, okay. So, um, touching, glimpsing, momentary. We've spoken of that many, many times here. And to start this conversation, what is it that we are touching or glimpsing? And why does it seem to be so transient and elusive? So again, everyone has a chance who wants to say anything. Nobody has to say something, but we'll give everyone a chance to say. Um, and what I will say to start off is that one thing Matthew has helped me with is sustaining those glimpses. Uh, so, what is it we're glimpsing? And why is it elusive?
Maybe it would help to say uh, many people have unusual experiences on the path of various sorts. Sometimes we don't know what to make of them. Sometimes we may have some idea about what they are. Sometimes we feel like we've glimpsed the truth itself or a deeper reality. Um, Sometimes it could just be something extraordinary that happened. So I know from talking with you all that you've had such experiences, and um, I'm curious what you made of them at the time and what you make of them now.
Well, I mean, it's all a little humbling, actually, to even say what I'm going to say, but I can answer Bruce's question. Um, I feel like I regularly touch the essence, the true essence of who I am. That's not the body, and I touch it regularly, and I feel like that essence is actually an element of the ultimate truth of the essence of all. What keeps me, I mean, I'm starting to just kind of be with it. I need to continue to surrender more to the moment because I get distracted, and that's okay. Um, but I need to just kind of surrender to that essence. I mean, I got really clear recently why you can't name it. I felt it. I mean, I felt why you can't name it,
Yeah.
because it's fundamental. So that's me. At some level, I get caught up in Maya, and you know, all right. And I'm, uh, but it's a regular touching. It's not now and then. Uh, so it, so, and I've been at this a long time, so maybe it's about time that I'm touching it more regularly.
Thank you, David. Alan, what do you have to say there?
I am glad that David put words to that because I'm sitting here wondering how to describe my experience as well. I can describe it several ways. And my experience is very, very similar in that there's this loosening. If my being is a contraction, it has loosened up, it has expanded. And what I feel in my heart space, the energy center around my heart, my high heart, whatever you'd like to call it, I feel this opening. And sometimes, and it's just a space, it's a space beyond this reality, this moment, that when I feel it, the contraction, my mind eases whatever I'm judging or reacting to, or whatever I am experiencing, I have distance from. There's not that immediacy of, there's not that immediacy. My mind is still going. It's that simultaneous dualism and non-dualism. I mean, I can feel the non-dual. I can feel it at the moment that I'm experiencing a dualistic mind. And I'm like David, more and more and more in this touching. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good description. Okay. Anyone else? And welcome, Christy.
Thank you. I'll go. I don't think I have much to say about it, but it feels like sometimes that life is a bit of a game, like a virtual reality game, and we just kind of just get hooked by it. We just believe that it's real. And then there are other times when we see that it's just a game and we can kind of step out of it. That's all.
Thank you.
Hey, I'll go. Hi, Nikolai. I don't know if you remember me from Holly's group. Just one hi. And hi, everybody else. Yeah, I mean, the glimpses, one time it was like I called it falling into a void, but it was like falling into nothingness, which I guess is a void. It was like if it happened so quickly one time that my ego mind got like frightened. It wasn't actually like a really like a oneness type of experience. It was actually very scary to the ego mind. And since then, I mean, I've definitely had glimpses that's always there. That's interesting. It's like I'll kind of fall into like nothingness, and that experience is there's something that in that experience that kind of stops me. Like I'm like, oh, remember that? Or it kind of comes in and it's like sitting on my shoulder, and reminding me of that time. And my ego gets frightened of that nothingness, even though I don't know, I guess there is like still a dualistic experience, because there's a part of it that feels, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it feels like truth, who it's hard to find words. Oneness, it feels like home. And then there's that part that feels like absolutely obliterated by it. So, that's kind of what's going on with me. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask a question for people to raise their hands, because Annie, I think you've shown something. How many people have touched and then had that feeling of fear or whatever? Just, I certainly have had that. Yes. Oh, hi, Leslie. So anybody else want to say anything about their touching before we move on?
I can add something, Mona here. I haven't had fear when these glimpses of no separation, oneness, whatever phrase one wants to use. It's more of a, oh, okay, I really got it. This is it. This is now. This is it. This is it. That's all. A real sense of, like a contentment, like, okay, no ego, no thinking about it, just, and then just carry on with whatever's happening. Not fear.
So that's another way of recognizing this. How many have had that experience of whatever Mona just described? No fear. Yeah. I would say that this is a pretty exceptional group that is really touching that so deeply. And there's a lot of groups that I think really seek that or think they touch it, but it really feels like this group touches it, recognizes it, perhaps sometimes even wallows in it. Okay. So Matthew, do you want to say anything now or do you want to wait? Wait, you're really garbling. I can't understand you. Have you been doing drugs? Or have I? I don't know.
How about now?
Say it again.
Can you understand me now?
Yeah, that's much better.
It's good now?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why. I just selected, well, it doesn't matter. I think I was on the wrong microphone. But y'all could hear me earlier when I did the meditation, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I'll just say I noticed when Alan was sharing something was happening. So if you switched something during that time, something got switched, it seemed. Yeah.
Okay, just let me know if you can't hear me, and I'll see what's going on. I thought I'd share a little bit my own experience because, when I was younger, I had these glimpses that came and went. Some of them were barely even noticed, just I remember sitting in meditation one time and just suddenly everything seeming, I don't know, very still. Even everything looked different. I just kind of marveled at it. And then it subsided. And I had another experience that I would describe it as an experience of non-self, but it was terrifying. And I mention this because, it seems like such a glimpse like this could be experienced either as pleasant or unpleasant, based on the interjections of the mind. In the case of the experience I had when it was terrifying, I started having, I think, like, a thought or two about fear, about my ego, about myself. I thought, I don't know what's happening. And if I don't know what's happening, then I could be, I don't know, going crazy or something like that. And once that thought came into my mind and I like believed it, that could be possible, then the fear started, and cascaded. It created a very unpleasant experience. So, I think depending on circumstances, such an experience could be pleasant or unpleasant, based on how deep the experience is and whether or not the mind interjects and what it interjects with, and whether or not those thoughts are believed. And I'll say, after my awakening, I had this experience was kind of ongoing then, and then I was wondering for the days following, what's going on? Why, what is this experience that I'm having? And I did at one point have a thought that I believed momentarily, and suddenly the experience became frightening. And that thought was, maybe I'm dead. And as soon as I thought that, I thought, yeah, that would explain this experience I'm having. And so for a moment, I believed it, and I thought, what's going to happen now? And for about 30 seconds, I was very nervous, and I started thinking about, like, how did I die? How did my parents find out? And so on and so forth. And suddenly, like spontaneously, I realized that it was just a thought. And that changed everything. Since that moment when I realized that was just a thought, what was a glimpse became the foundational experience. And what before then I thought of as my life became just a thought. And so when I think about this subject of glimpsing now, I think about the idea of flipping frame of reference. You know, ordinarily, because we identify with the mind or with the body or with our life, we see that as the kind of through line, the steadiness. In other words, we see that mind, body, and life as permanent. Even though we know, okay, we were born and we're going to die someday, we see the present experience of our life as a kind of continuity. That's the continuity that we sort of attach ourselves to, you know. And that's why, for example, we don't pay much attention to sleep, because in sleep, much of that mind and body disappears. And so we just discount it. Well, that's not part of my life, really. I mean, dreams, maybe we consider as part of our mental life, but the deep sleep, we just think, well, that's nothing, so it doesn't have anything to do with me. It's just, we need it, but nothing more. And so because we view that mind, body, waking life as the continuity of our life, when we glimpse true clarity, when we see through that sort of that view or that veil of belief in the mind-body world as the foundational reality, we view it as a glimpse, because we've already sort of taken the mind, body, and world as the foundational experience. And so we may, you know, and so that view, or that sort of, as I have said about my own experience in the past, when I had these breakthroughs or glimpses, normal life returned, you know? So, and that's like the ego returning, or the ordinary experience, or as some people say, the dualistic experience returns. And so with glimpsing, I think about how do we flip that? How do you see what we've taken to be our normal life, waking life, the mind, body, and world, as transient, as temporary, as flitting in and out, in the same way that, like in the meditation, we tried to focus on one point. It's almost impossible. There's always movement somewhere in the awareness. Something is always moving around or shifting. Even if you can pin that object to the center of your awareness, the peripheral will start to move. And so that's why, if if you've heard me talk any, I often refer to deep sleep, because I just say, consider it. Consider that as a part of your life, and also all the times in which during the day you are absent-minded or momentarily not there. We usually think about this as just spacing out, or I'm not there. But if you start to think about those empty moments as the foundation, and all the things that appear as happening on top of that, I think that kind of sets the stage for that flipping of the frame of reference. And the reality is that it's not one or the other. It's not emptiness to the exclusion of happenings. It's not deep sleep to the exclusion of being awake. I just stress those things because often we're so focused on one that in order to see both sides of the coin, we have to flip the frame of reference. The true non-dualistic experience isn't non-dual. It involves duality and non-duality. That's the true non-dualism. If you have this expectation that true non-duality is somehow doesn't involve dualism, how does dualism come about then? whatever the foundation or the base reality is, everything that we experience or have experienced has to be seen as a function of that or as part of that. So all the dualistic experience that we've had is happening within this foundational non-duality, if that makes sense, you know. We often think like we're trying to get away from one thing and get to another thing. And I would say that nothing needs to be banished. It's more like a shifting of the frame of reference, or yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, Matthew, you answered question number 4. So
Oh, well, I'm ahead of the game then.
you're ahead of the game. I don't know the relevance of the other questions anymore.
That's all right. I may have more to say on it as we get into it. I don't know.
Well, let's see if anyone has comments or questions about what you just said, rather than me reading the questions. I think you said a couple things that were really important. If we're looking for a non-dual experience that excludes duality, I guess we don't find that.
Yeah, that's why, like just in meditation, for example, many types of meditation have a goal of, stopping thought. And so people get the idea that the whole point is stopping thought. And so the non-dual experience must be without any thoughts. But that's not exactly right. The benefit of being able to stop your thoughts is this flipping of the frame of reference. Of it gives you an insight into what is really foundational. If you're able to remove the thoughts and so on. And the same is true of the so-called dualistic experience. It's not a problem. It's when we believe that that's the foundation of reality that it becomes it's not even really a problem then, but it becomes a kind of an obstacle to this clarity, if that's what one is seeking. Yeah.
We were walking once, Matthew, and I think I asked you, well, what's your experience here? And do you experience non-duality? And you said, of course I do. It's like I see it, and I see through it. I see what is fundamentally true through it. That's not a great translation of what you said to me, but it was extremely helpful for me. That
yeah, it's like if you see a painting, and you see the image on the painting, the scene, the characters, the subject, whatever is depicted in the painting, and that's where your focus goes. That's like the so-called dualistic experience. But if you change the frame of reference or the focal point of your eyes, you will see the canvas, the texture of the canvas, with all the ridges, and the momentarily awareness of the view may disappear. Because you've changed your focus to the canvas, and you're just seeing, it's all painted on this textured canvas. But you can also see both at the same time. When you see the picture, when you see the image, the canvas is still there. You know it's there, and you can see through the image to the canvas, if that makes any sense. You're seeing both. You know, you're always seeing both, you know. Even when you don't know the canvas is there, you're still looking right at it, you know. There's not, it's not elsewhere or hidden from you. You're looking right at it, you know. That's what I mean. So yeah, I often hear people say, you know, I don't know, there's just this idea that it's something else rather than what actually is right in front of us. Yeah.
Clara, you got a question.
I do, thanks. So when I was hearing what Matthew was saying earlier, I started like imagining probably that there's like two layers, or there's like two realities going on at the same time, like one which is the permanent, unchangeable, and the other one is all the things that seem to be happening on top of that, kind of like two different lanes, one on top of the other. Now that you were talking with this metaphor of the painting, I like my perspective changed, right? Like it's not one or two things different. It's just one thing. It's just your focus or your mom or because at the beginning for a minute I thought, okay, if there's these two kind of movies kind of going on at the same time, and one is always ongoing, the glimpses are just an interruption of the ongoing changeable thing, and something comes up from underneath the permanence, right? Or the unity of all, the silence underneath all. But then now that you were saying, like I have this question because you were saying, and it just came spontaneous. Of course, I've asked this question to myself before, but you were saying like we are seeing both at the same time. So what is seen is the obvious question. It just came really clearly. So what is seen both at the same time?
Mm.
The canvas and the painting on top of it.
Yeah, it's this. That's what I mean. That's what we're experiencing. And you know, that's always what we're seeing is both. It's just that the mind, which actually is a part of the image that's in the painting, the mind fixates on the image and believes that to be what is real. And when it does, then it thinks you know, if you ask it, okay, but what is going on? What is the foundation of reality? They'll explain it to you in terms of the image, not by pointing to the canvas. And so seeing both at the same time is just the cessation of believing in the image, really. Then you see the image, but you recognize the canvas.
So I wonder, something in a meditation that recently happened is that I was seeing both at the same time, but then I felt, or I realized, or I don't know, or I understood, or whatever, I know how to call it, that they both originate, like the painting and the canvas, meaning what was happening, what I was feeling, the physical sensations and all of that. And I was perceiving something else. And then what I perceive is that they were both, like the more permanent and the painting on top of whatever, had the same, or originated in the same source.
Yeah, yes.
And then I got scared. See, maybe not, maybe I didn't get scared, but
yes.
I doesn't always experience it. I fear of course I have But it's just that something, I'm sure there has to be fear underneath, because even if it doesn't experience like fear, something stops and gets me out from it instead of dwelling as I would like
Yeah.
into that experience.
Yeah. So a couple things there, sometimes we have an idea of the canvas and we think that idea is the canvas, but it's actually just another part of the image. And when we see through that, it really opens up a lot of uncertainty about what's happening. And in the same sense, seeing through the image like that, suddenly your own being comes into question. And for me, in my own experience, this is where I think the fear comes in, is because very suddenly you could question whether or not you even exist. And that can be disturbing. So, but you're right in this. This is a deep insight to see that, like, oh, I see these two things, the permanent and the impermanent, and then you see, wait, these two things are both being projected or emanating from the same source. And then suddenly the change and the focus changes to that source. And that's the true emptiness, the void. You see, it's beyond the imagined void or the pictured void. And so anything that we can think of or picture or imagine or name isn't the source. The source is unviewable, unknowable in the ordinary sense of knowing. We can only know it by suddenly realizing it's not anything else. It's not anything projected in our awareness. It is the awareness itself. In this, yeah. So that's why in the teachings people say, you can't see your own eye. A knife can't cut itself. Anything that you can see isn't what you are. Anything that you can think of isn't what you are. Anything that you can imagine or picture or name isn't what you are. And by this kind of process of eliminating it, can't be that because I'm seeing it. It can't be that because I'm seeing that. These are all kind of things that are like a dream arising within our awareness. Who or what is the dreamer? That is the kind of question that the spiritual path gets at. When all phenomena appear as dreams, who or what is the dreamer? And you can't look at it like you could another object. It is only by seeing that it isn't anything in awareness. And if you take that to its conclusion, you may just spontaneously, like that, recognize this void, this unspeakable presence or reality that is not what you thought you were, but I would say it is what we all really are.
Nikolai, any questions? You got to unmute yourself.
First, I had to find where I was. So do I have any questions probably a lot of questions, but I'm kind of just settling into the felt experience of um just life, because I can tend to get a little bit confused mentally,
Mm.
especially when I'm trying to like track somebody else's thoughts, and I might miss it in a key piece or something, and so I feel kind of lost in the conversation, and then I find myself trying to catch up with the conversation, and then I'm like, forget it. I'm just going to be in this present experience in that confusion and let that confusion be what's arising in the moment. Um, and let that take me to the realization that there is a canvas behind the painting. And yeah, it is always there. It's always there. This mind is tenacious, as we all know, and but I've never been able to win. I can't I can't win at nobody can win at managing the mind.
Mm.
So I just at this point I let it come and go, and usually it captures me to some degree, and then I just go with that. And then before, I just let myself be caught up in it, and then um at some point I realize what's happening, and then I see the canvas again. But I don't know how strong that awareness is of the canvas. I don't know. Like um I know that like Maya or the illusion has loosened its grip on me a lot. And so I don't take things very seriously anymore like I used to. All the waves that pummel me and come smashing on the shore and on the rocks. I just, yeah, I let them be part of the experience. I would love to tell you guys the big experience that I have of this awareness, going back to question number one. Um, it was when I was living with my partner at the time. We've since broken up, but we're super good friends. But we had an argument, and I think she was being ridiculous. But I realized that there was no winning. There was just no winning at this conversation that we were having, this argument. So I literally went into my bedroom to where I've built a meditation platform, and it's always sitting there. I don't use it very often, but it's always sitting there. It's got a nice padded cushion ready for me when I finally just do it. Um, and I kneeled down on it facing the wall, and I can kind of remember banging my head against the wall, thinking to myself, I can't win. I can't win. Take this from me. And at a certain point, I had a glimpse of the awareness watching Nikolai have this ridiculous experience. And it's almost like the peaks and the valleys of the emotions and the thoughts as they rose and fall. I could see them like on a grid, like a computer grid. And that I think it lasted for about 45 minutes. And I remember because at a certain point I recorded myself, and I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to capture the moment. You can't capture the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so it just kind of over time, I was tracking it and I was talking about it. I'm like, this is the most incredible experience. Wow. And then I remember thinking to myself, so what is the thought that's gonna pull me back?
Mm.
And that was the thought.
That was the thought.
And since then, I've been like, wow, I had that one experience, and it was a sweet like little glimpse of just knowing that there's something other than Nikolai having that experience.
Mm.
I I've That was the closest I ever got to just being the awareness of Nikolai having that experience. And I'm looking at number 2 now and the question number 2, but I don't want to get ahead. So basically that has been the thing that's kept me on this path, but I have not been as diligent as some.
Well,
I'm still caught up in the world of delusion, big time.
well,
You know,
that's a beautiful testimony, not only because of the experience, but because of what led up to it. Because this, I can't win. There's nothing that I can do. And just take it from me. I can't, there's nothing, there's a kind of, that's the true attitude of surrender. To completely admit one's own total powerlessness, helplessness of the ego to do anything, to accomplish anything, to understand anything, to affect anything, or to win at anything. And letting go of that, like that, truly, where you just, I can't do it anymore. There's nothing I can do, is, I think, precisely what puts us into a position to transcend our normal view, and even though as I said before, normal life may return, once you've had a glimpse like that, my experience was, well, that's it. It's like fuel on the spiritual fire, Once you've seen, there is more to what's going on, then yeah, you just keep going, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, Nikolai, I would say that was more than a glimpse. It sounds like you waded up to your chin.
I want to dive right in, man. That water is kind of elusive. It's always there.
Immerse yourself next time. A couple of thoughts I had. Last month, we followed up on a comment Dave had made about checkmating the mind. And that, it's the mind, in one sense, the mind can be the problem. But we also realized that there's nothing we can do to checkmate the mind because the mind can't checkmate itself. So we entitled tonight's topic, Silencing the Ego, because I think we've a number of comments about, how the ego is that mechanism that sustains us in the duality. And Matthew just talked about, a very effective way. And I think David's first thing was, how do I surrender? So, we've got about 15 minutes left, and maybe we'll just leap to what is the way that we surrender, that we achieve that silencing of the ego. Is it intentional? I'm sure for some of us it happens spontaneously and unexpectedly, and sometimes through our practice. But what are some hints you can share with all of us from your experience on ways of silencing the ego?
Wait, you're not asking me, are you?
No, I'm asking anyone. Not
Oh,
just
okay.
you. You got to have a fight with your partner again.
That was a good pointing. Yes, it was.
How about for others? What have you done, or what has been a circumstance or situation that has thrust you into it. Well, I'll share what worked for me, and that was I was having touchings by seeing the world as just beauty, just this unbelievable, beautiful world. And sometimes that beauty would scare me a little bit, and sometimes I would just luxuriate in it, but I always came back. And I said, well, I'm just going to try and sit in beauty. And by golly, it worked. I could sit in beauty, and um, and that experience of seeing, but also not losing, not outside of duality, but seeing what was behind it. So for me, beauty was one of the doors that was really effective for me, or helpful for me, in seeing what is fundamentally beautiful.
I would say the question is not how I relate to it. I don't think the ego is a problem. I don't want to get rid of the ego. It's not a problem at all. And so this space that I'm looking for is always there, and the ego, well, who cares?
I think that's true. That's seeing through the ego. So not silencing it. What would you say that the ego is just a part?
It's just there,
Yeah.
right? So it's just part of the whole, right? And so like duality, non-duality, the ego is my friend. Why would I want to get rid of it? Why do I want to see through it? It's there. I don't have to grasp onto it. It doesn't have to control me, but if I try to get rid of anything, or I want to eliminate anything, it's wrong. How could that be right?
I would say that is seeing through the ego. To clarify the way I'm talking about things, is seeing through it is exactly what you're describing. It's not always there, though, is it? Sometimes it's not there. Yeah.
I loved your little smile there, Larry.
Yeah. Yeah, there's obviously there's schools of language that talk about getting rid of the ego or ego death and so on. That's one way of talking about it. But there's another school of talking about it where it says, look, the ego isn't even real. It's not even a real thing. So in which sense, what would you get rid of? There's just phenomena. And if you're struggling to get rid of your ego, or again, consider deep sleep when it naturally disappears. No effort necessary. And then just see that effortlessness of deep sleep is actually present even in the waking experience. That emptiness exists behind what you perceive as this troublesome ego. And then it's no problem.
Bruce, you said that you sometimes found beauty scary. I was curious if you could extrapolate on that. Why was beauty scary to you sometimes?
Ah, well, I think we talked a little bit about just a fear as we have a glimpse or a touch. And, the first few times I touched beauty, it was not intentional. It was just looking at nature or my garden in my backyard. And one time, it was so powerful, and it hit me, and instantly, it felt like a body blow, and and the beauty was gone. I was like, what was that? And of course, I talked to Matthew about that, and over time, so that's what it was. It was just a spontaneous, shocking, whatever. I call it a recognition now, that I'm recognizing something without any conceptual words or sense of self associated with it. And I've become comfortable with that, but at that particular moment, it was scary. How about you? Do you have something to say about that?
I can really relate to that. Actually, this is actually touches on why I first got in touch with Matthew in the first place. I was having experiences where the understanding or I guess it's you can't even really put into words how powerful that sense of beauty and love can be at those instances, but it's so overwhelming. And when it happens, it can be terrifying. It can be actually really quite frightening. And so I think even now I am still given to having those instances where it's like, holy cow, So
Is it, I'm just kind of curious because what I'm picking up from both of you, and it's your reality, but I'm picking up that it's more startling than scary. But is it really scary? Because I mean, is it really scary or is it just like, whoa,
I think it's terrifying.
terrifying?
Because I've also had it when I've done hallucinogens like San Pedro or peyote, where you have it's like you have just so much love and beauty radiating out from every aspect of reality into your soul, and you feel like you're going to blow up, or I felt like I was going to blow up, like I couldn't take any more of it, and uh, and I, without hallucinogens. Uh, uh, I can be sitting someplace and I'll see a beautiful person or a beautiful moment or have a beautiful experience, or just, like Bruce was saying, you see something, maybe you're sitting in the garden and you see, like, you just understand how absolutely profoundly beautiful existence is. And at those instances, it can seem almost like kind of something similar to like madness or the termination of your soul or something like that, because you just you can't you can't take that kind of profound beauty. It's just overwhelming. And so that's very disturbing when that happens, that overwhelming sense of powerful, profound beauty.
Thank you for saying more. Appreciate that.
I'm really, it's really interesting to hear this, because I don't think I ever heard it put into words that way. But yeah, when I'm looking out at my deck, because that's where I like to sit and just kind of look out. I had a similar experiences like that, and there was a thought that came with it when I got, like you said, terrified, and I've definitely had that terrifying experience in that space. And the thought was, oh, this is like too much to hold. It was like it's like almost like my like the capacity, like my body or like space, and so I couldn't hold that. And then when I realized that thought, it was like I was trying to like contain it almost, or like capture, like it was too much to hold, you know. And when I let that thought go, that was trying to define it, put it in a box, then it's there's no, I mean, that beauty is also a reflection. It's not something I'm just witnessing. It is something I am, right? It's something, it's like there's nothing blocking that from.
There's nothing outside of that beauty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly, including you.
Yes. And
that to me,
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that to me though, that's like the next level, you know, is once you get over being overwhelmed by that sense of beauty and you understand it for what it is and you see that it's forever, that also can be quite disturbing, because then you realize that's all you ever going to have, that enormous beauty of existence or conscious awareness. It continues indefinitely forever. And you're like, oh, whoa, there's no alternative. There's nothing you can do about it. That's all there is.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
Matthew would say that's just a thought.
yeah. Well, yeah, actually, what Dennis is describing is exactly what Annie was describing when she said she had this thought that was like trying to contain it, you know? And in fact, Dennis, I think I've even given you this advice about this exact thing is, you know, because, and this isn't the first time I've heard an account like this. I've heard these accounts before where people say, I talked to somebody once who was telling me when they were like 10 years old, they went out in their backyard and had this completely overwhelming feeling of love and beauty. And it was so overwhelming that they were like, no, too much, I can't handle it. And Dennis, you've told me that it can feel like it's going to blow you apart. And I remember saying to you one time, yeah, let it blow you apart. Because when we try to contain it with a thought or to leave ourselves outside of it, that's when it becomes terrifying, because it's so overwhelming. When you leave yourself out, you feel that you will be destroyed or overwhelmed. And it's only when you let go of that attempt to contain it or control it in some way, or to stop it, like somebody had said earlier, I think it was you, Nikolai, who said the very thought of how do I encapsulate this was the thought that ended it, you know? And so the very attempt to encapsulate it it's an impossible thing. So it's like, and I don't know what allows us to be completely open like that, to let down the guard, you know. In my case, I can say it came about when I was really done with myself. I had no desire to hang on to myself anymore. So when reality came to obliterate me, I bring it on. I was open to it, you know. I didn't have that. There was no resistance. And then that bliss, which is what I call it now, love and beauty, I would say, is this bliss component of reality. That bliss just, yeah, becomes everything, including you. And you're not outside of it, so there's nothing to resist it. Yeah, absolutely beautiful accounts, testimony, and it's so wonderful to see the parallels between experience and how these experiences are in line with many generations of teachings on this subject. That's why, when practicing, sometimes we feel like we're approaching something. It could be scary, it could be desirable. But when you start to feel you're getting close to whatever that is, the most important thing is not to try to fix it or to reach out for it or to grab it or to make it yours or to understand it or anything. The most important thing when you feel yourself at any threshold is to let go. To allow whatever is happening or not happening to happen or not happen with no resistance whatsoever. That's why I try to conclude every meditation with just that open awareness of not trying to do anything, not trying to do nothing, not trying to fix anything or nothing in particular. Whatever is happening is what's happening.
And as the manager of this discussion, I'm sad to say that our hour and a half is over. And I'm going to end with a little blessing. May each of us take the support of this group as comfort as we swim, plunge into the fundamental awareness, and not try to recreate what happened yesterday, because that's ego trying to do something, but surrendering or letting go or opening or swimming. Just swim. Walk in up to your neck and then dip fully. Blessings to you all. We'll do this again next month.
Thank you.
Dennis.
Thank you, everyone. It was
Thank
really great seeing
you.
everyone, and wonderful discussion.